Welcome to the Mind of Business Success podcast. I'm your host, Alicia Cramer. Our guest today is Raquel Miller. She is the founder of Bunchful Enterprises, and we are going to talk about philanthropy. So welcome to the show, Raquel.
Thank you so much, Alicia, for welcoming me and for this opportunity to meet your guests and yourself.
Let's talk about what you are doing with your business. So can you start by sharing with our listeners, what is the Bunchful Enterprises? What is the Bunchful Awards? Talk to us about the amazing stuff that you're doing.
Thank you so much. So I founded Bunchful as an organization that is all about giving. That was our DNA. Actually, when we first launched the company, we launched as a gifting service. Lots of things happening during the pandemic with supply chain, and so we really went back to look at our, the main thrust of where the direction for the organization. So we created Bunchful with all our products and services, which are really divided into two. We have events and we have technology. Our events, we have two events. One is which is a summit, which is the Bunchful Future Philanthropy Summit. We actually just completed that recently. We had amazing turnout. We had almost 400 people showed up, with their support. And our second event is the Bunchful Awards. Both of these are annual events. And the Bunchful Awards is where we take time to recognize and celebrate those who give back. So for people who are in your life, who are just givers, who help their community, who really show up in that way for others, we want to recognize and honor them with the Bunchful Awards. But I mentioned that we have our technology, and our technology, which is called BE Bunchful Tech, allows businesses to showcase all the philanthropy and social good they do all on one platform, and that is the BE Bunchful technology.
That is awesome. I found that a lot of really kind-hearted, we'll just say individuals who are out doing great things. They're building businesses. They're contributing to society through oftentimes their different products or services. And it's not until somebody becomes really well known that you start to see that other side that's not necessarily always, front and center. And that is the stuff that they are doing to help the causes that they really, really are passionate about and support. And I always say, you cannot give what you don't have. You just can't. Yeah. And if you don't have the resources to give, whether that's money or time, or sometimes it's just your energy, it's your passion, you just simply are not going to be able to give in those ways. So I love that you're recognizing people for what they're doing. And I'd love for you to maybe share a little bit about what you see from your perspective as you're kind of behind the scenes and you're digging into this a little bit more and seeing what people are doing.
Oh, yes. Yes, absolutely. And I wanted to go back a little bit, to talk about giving, because so the word Bunchful was one that we created. And Bunchful, which is Bunchful, we created that word to mean sharing your abundance with others. And so when we look at giving, we talk about, everyone comes together to create a community, and different people have different resources. So some people are rich in talent or in financially or in so many other ways. But by giving where our abundance lies, that's where we focus on. So we know that there is so much dearth, and that particularly we see communities that are more financially strapped. They don't have those kinds of resources, but there are other places from which to give, and other things that we draw on, whether our time, our talent, all these things. And that's where we position our company, which is, we're going to celebrate giving. But yes, so thank you. But you asked about, how we, some of the behind the scenes work, that came in. I can tell you that as a startup, we too, some of those things you talked about in terms of limited resources, limited funding, we are having a real conversation in this country right now about access to the kinds of resources to help communities, to help startups, to help so many different people, where resources are not just centralized in one area, but are now, others are able to access that. And so I can say that for myself, that, being able to access some of those resources, whether it's marketing, legal, funding, those are what has come together to help us in bringing our product forward. It's definitely something, an area that where we will put some focus behind, because we know that some people are not, they don't have the information, they don't have access to the certain information, to get what they need in order to thrive.
When people are using your technology, what is their motivation? Is it do you think it's to kind of show off that they're out there doing these types of things? Do you think that there is a slightly different motive? I'm just kind of curious what the psychological, emotional reasons are, as well as maybe some of the business benefits to showcasing those types of things.
Right. So, human psychology is so layered and so complex, and our motivations are sometimes not always linear. And so we feed from so many different things that help us to act in certain ways. But from our perspective as a company, with regard to the BE Bunchful technology, what we're going after is to be able to lead, to show a way of giving, and to lead by giving, and to show that by giving, yes, that can positively affect your business. People are looking at your company as one that is really engaged in the community, in giving back. And so, while we won't legislate, what you ought to do, how you ought to view it, one of the things, the benefit that we know is that when you are really front and center in giving, others will notice and they will want to support your business. Yes, and so yes, some people will use it as a method of, showing off, but really the real goal is to help others, to show others how they can give back, and that they do have, different resources that they themselves can give.
I love that. And I think that there is a distinction, like you mentioned, from one person or business's motivation versus another. And you can kind of sense that from people. Even if you're at a charity event, there are people who are giving because they genuinely want to give. and they're not doing it in any sort of way to indicate that it's for publicity or for any type of personal recognition. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I think that as human beings, we can sort of sense that genuineness and we respect and appreciate it so much more. So when you see even someone who posts on, they have the logos on their website, for instance, like they give to Habitat for Humanity or whatever it is, sometimes you get a sense that it really is genuine. They really do want to support. And I think that for those of us who are just genuinely good, kind-hearted people, we have a respect and appreciation for that. And we do love to support our fellow business owners who are looking out for the greater good of not only their communities, but just other people and anything, animals, the planet. Everybody has their soft spot, For me, it's definitely children and hungry people. those are my soft spots. So I think what you're doing is really, really, really beautiful.
Yes, and one of the things that, for us, we are agnostic with regard to, whatever area that motivates you most to want to give. It's hard to see hungry children, hungry people around the world who have, so little. It is hard to, to see animals being, being ill-treated. It's hard to see a lot of those things. And so, people like you and others help to support those organizations who are doing the work, or support those particular people or cause individually, even on a one-to-one basis. But the whole society, we're made up of so many parts. It what comes together to create our republic and create a full community. So we get to nourish people in the arts. We get to help in all these other ways too that are they're not they're not just on the survival side, but how do we nourish our soul, and how do we support organizations or people who are nourishing their soul. I mentioned actually that we're also a technology company. That's because we have an additional technology which is slated for a further launch later on. It's our Ensom City technology. More on that later. But that technology really goes to, when you give, we give to others. Giving is an essential part of life. You take in a breath, you let out a breath, give and receive. But one of the things that we also are very, that's very important for us is giving to others, but also giving to ourselves. What are those things that we need in order to grow and expand and, and express ourselves?
It is a law of nature, giving and receiving. And there are some people who are out of balance. We have a pretty good understanding of that imbalance, right? Mm-hmm. Even if we are maybe not severely imbalanced ourselves, or we've been there, done that, recovered from it. But we do see that in, throughout life. Some people are givers and they're not taking care of themselves. Yes. They're giving to the point where now it is actually starting to become harmful to their emotional and physical state of well-being. Yeah. There are others who are really good at taking, and we've all had that experience where someone is more than happy to ask, and never reciprocates, never gives anything in exchange or in return. And both of those energies are just not empowering. They're not good for anyone.
Yeah.
But when we have that right balance, it is being in harmony with the laws of nature, the laws of the universe. And there is something to be said about the abundant nature of being able to give and receive in a way that is in harmony and in alignment with our state of being. So I think for anyone who has had the emotional fulfillment, really, that comes from giving to someone in need who genuinely appreciates it, there's no other feeling quite like it.
Yeah. I used to be the person who did not give to myself. And I poured so much into everything else, wherever I was working or volunteer or, everything else. And then one day I passed out, on the streets of New York. I just fell to the ground. Two women came and they helped me. They were busy on their way to work and they interrupted their day and helped me and got me to a hospital. And as I was in that hospital for a couple of days, I was thinking about, all those people I would read about who would be suffering from exhaustion. And I don't know if I had really properly given it enough thought before or enough importance. But as I laid there, I realized that my life has to be nourished both ways. I had to nourish myself in order to show up for others in a way that will be, fully rounded and not just, showing up from a place of dearth and lack.
That's powerful. It's a powerful experience to have. It is sad that we create these types of experiences for ourselves in order to learn the lesson that has always been nagging at us. And we just are not willing to listen. It's the universe likes to, or you could call it God, you can call it the universe, you could call it your own inner being, right? But regardless of what you want to call it, the phenomenon is the same. First, it's a quiet whisper, and it's so subtle you can barely even hear it. And then it's a little bit louder. And then it's a little bit louder. And you're starting to see evidence around you of things are a little bit off. You got to do something different. And I like to say, that voice gets louder and louder and louder. And then it's like a nudge, and then it's like a little punch. And then before you know it, if you're not paying attention, it's full on going to be like, the 2x4 upside the head saying, "Hey, dummy."
Part of that lesson really came to bear during the pandemic because I was just diagnosed with cancer. And if I had not taken the time, this was just through a routine check. And so now I'm going to be, taking some time off from work, to go through surgeries around that. But if I hadn't been taking time to take care of myself, to really, spend, because I would spend, days, I would not give, enough energy around something like this to even have detected it. And so now I have, taken the time and just through routine check, found something in its very nascent, very early stages. And so many people who, they don't have the time, they don't take the time to really, take care of themselves in this way. And so, you become sicker and sicker and you just ignore all the signs. Yeah.
So for anyone who is hearing your story, I really do hope that it is a wake-up call. because what we're really talking about here is so much deeper than giving money to people in need
Yeah.
or donating to charity. It
Yeah.
really is about self-love and love for others and humanity and animals and the planet, and being in alignment with yourself, taking care of yourself, loving yourself. And when I started out this episode and I said, you cannot give what you do not have, that's exactly what we're talking about. You can't give of yourself if you're not healthy. You can't give
Yeah.
of yourself if you're not okay. If you're not
Yeah.
taking in and receiving your health, your wellness, your me time, your, whatever it is that you need, right? Then you can't be out there doing what it is that you are being called to do, which is the gift then that you give to others. So thank you for taking care of yourself so you can continue doing the work that you are being called to do and giving your gifts through your company and just by virtue of being a beautiful human being.
Thank you.
So you've shared a little bit about how your company came to be, and you shared a little bit about your own stuff that you're going through right now. And I'm just curious if there's anything that you feel inspired to share with us about your mindset journey as a business owner. And I'm not asking for an entire autobiography, but maybe if there is like one thing with your own mindset that you had to overcome to get to where you are today, what might that be?
To overcome the thought that, let me go back a little bit and say that perhaps for a long time, perhaps very early in my life, I realized that I had an important job to do. I think I ran away from it in many ways. I did everything else because it felt so monumental a task. And I went into everything else to do so that I could avoid doing what I felt was really something that was coming from inside myself. I wanted to quelch that. Part of it was that perhaps I didn't feel worthy, but I was worthy. Perhaps I felt that in my own life I had made so many mistakes, and those precluded me from being worthy of doing something important, in my life, and that could also impact others. And so when I started to embrace this, I actually started a nonprofit, which we ran for a few years, and then went dark. And I think it was still that nagging feeling that I don't think that I have this within me. And yet that desire also came from within. So those two conflicting thoughts, that I'm not worthy to do this, but yet this desire is coming from within. I had to get over the thought that there were too many obstacles, that there were too many, that I wasn't equipped with all the resources, with the talent that I needed. And so I had to find a way for the things that I did not, for the skills that I did not have, I had to go and find the people with those skills. And for the mountain that I feel or felt I had to climb, I had to just take, one step each day, one step at a time. And so that's the shortened version.
It probably resonates with 90 or more % of people listening. It is so common. And this is one of the areas that I frequently work with my clients on. It's that deep sense, because of old subconscious conditioning, that who are we to do something great? Because we have so many memories of falling short, being out of our state of alignment, maybe not being a very good version of ourselves. We all have dark stuff in our past. Every single human being, it's part of the human experience, but those things become these seemingly justifiable excuses for why we should not put ourselves out there and not take the risk and not go for it and not say yes to our heart's desires. And even when people are courageous enough to say yes to themselves, they still are dragging all of that stuff with them. So it is always an ever evolving process of releasing those things and recognizing that it's natural, it's normal, it's okay to be imperfect. Welcome to the club, right? There is something inside of you that is bigger than that. And you can drop that stuff. It may be a little messy at times, but it can be done and it should be done, because then you can just be more of that empowered version of you and doing the thing that you are being called to do from within and from without. So thank you so much, Raquel. Can you share with our listeners how they can get in contact with you?
Oh, yes, sure. They can, so for example, if you want to nominate someone for the Bunchful Awards, you can simply go to thebunchfulawards.com and you will see the nomination form there. They can, they can send us a contact directly, hello@bunchful.com. And, we monitor that. And we're all, we're on social media. We're on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter mostly. But yeah, just, connect with us wherever you want to do, or, however you wish, essentially.
Awesome. This has been a beautiful conversation, a deep, heartfelt conversation. And just, wow, it was just full of beautiful, beautiful stuff. So I really do appreciate having you with us, Raquel. Thank you so very much for sharing so openly about everything that's going on in your life and in your business.
Thank you so much, Alicia, and for this opportunity.
It is my pleasure. And thank you to all of our guests and all of our listeners. If you haven't already subscribed, please make sure you do so. And until next time, we will see you in the next episode.